and a very warm welcome to the Happiness Chat. Feeling the blues? Try dancing. Wellness is the topmost concern this year, for obvious reasons. Let's see how dancing fares on all three levels of wellness: physical, mental, and emotional. Physical? Well, it's a great workout, without a doubt, and just so much fun. Mental, dancing releases hormones such as dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, collectively termed as the happy hormones. Dancing with joy, says the phrase. The two go hand in hand, just like a happy couple. Emotional, it's a great way to express ourselves. In fact, it's therapeutic because it acts as a window to our emotions. It also improves our body's self image as well as our self esteem. There seem to be only pros of dancing and no cons. But wait, there's more good news. We often hear that there are no shortcuts in life. Well, there are shortcuts to happiness, and one of them is dancing, says Vicky Bohm. So, dancing makes us happy. There are no doubts about this. But we go one level further up to reach the level of our guest speaker. The happiness that one gets when you make differently abled people dance. The people who could have never imagined themselves dancing. It's like living a dream. How incredible is that? And more so when you have a physical condition yourself. Let's face it, when the word dancer comes to mind, we picturize a dancer as a lean, able bodied, graceful person, maybe a ballerina standing on her toes. The vision of a dancer in a wheelchair performing on stage does not even enter the realms of our mind. Breaking old norms, typical mindsets, and bringing in a fresh perspective. It gives me great pleasure to welcome my guest speaker, Ancy Alexander, to the Happiness Chat today. It's great to have you here, Ancy.
Hey Shilpa, what a wonderful, wonderful danceful introduction. I could just sit here listening to you right through the day.
Thank you.
So, how have you been? And first of
Um,
all, thank you so much. Thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for this opportunity. Um, what can I say? I'm truly touched, and I think I'm really, really kind of like still hanging over. It's a hangover from the beautiful lines that you just said, Shilpa. Truly wonderful. Thank you.
you were very kind, Ancy. Actually, I am a fan of the work that you do.
Oh,
And that's why I wanted to have you on the chat because I wanted to share that with all the people who will be seeing the chat. So, again, a very warm welcome to you. And I'm going to just jump into the chat. So, going back to your childhood, you were diagnosed with cerebral palsy at the age of 6.
that's right.
How did that change your life?
It didn't really. To be very honest, I grew up not being fully aware of what my physical limitations were in many ways, because usually cerebral palsy or conditions like that are detected very early on. In my case, I just happened to meet my milestones during the early years. So my parents didn't really spot that I had an issue till I started going to preschool, started interacting with other kids, and that's when they saw, hang on a second, there seems to be a problem. That's how they take me in for the first set of tests, and it gets confirmed that I have the partial form of cerebral palsy, which means I'm affected waist down. So that's the version of the condition that I'm married to for life. And growing up, I knew that especially mom, like made a huge fuss about it. Both my parents, were very crumbled by the fact that they have a daughter with a disability that will not be cured fully. So that is a big thing for, I think, especially parents from the subcontinent. So they were a bit, you know, um, sorrowed by the news. Mom tried her level best, like pretty much most of my growing years, I think, was spent between physiotherapy classes and dance classes and a lot of uh, work post academics, of course, in trying to get, and of course, the temple visits, church visits, hospital visits, never ending, roller coaster ride of all of that. But I don't think it's stuck in my head that I would fall and trip a lot. I'd come back with multiple injuries from school. But it just did not stick in my head that I could not do something. It was just, oh, I have to try harder, work harder. If I wanted to be a part of the shot put team, I just had to try harder so they'd select me the next year. Be a part of the march past team. It was like, oh, you need to raise your leg higher, Ancy. It's just try, never can't. Um, yeah, so that's me growing up with a condition.
Yeah, actually, I think it's the beauty of childhood, it's the beauty of innocence. You don't realize the magnitude of something.
True,
And honestly, I feel, Nancy, it's beautiful because many times ignorance is bliss. So
hundred
that's
percent. 100%. I agree with you. Ignorance is bliss. And I think um, between my parents, my mom just played such a massive role where they're like, she's like, okay, usually, or in many cases, if you have cerebral palsy, you could be affected where you'd have learning, disabilities or mental challenges. And for her, it was like, all right, this one can go to mainstream school and she can study. Well, that's not up for negotiation then. She's going to study, all right? So she didn't give me a break. I was one of those kids who grew up with 0 days of absence from school. Like there's just no way I could pull a, oh, I have a tummy ache, I want to stay at home, because I'd have to study harder at home than at school. So I'd
wow.
rather just go to school and deal with that there.
Wow, amazing. So tell me, how did you come to terms with your condition once, the childhood was over, adolescence started, when you came to realize a bit, at least, if not fully, what was wrong with you, and how did you move forward in life?
I didn't. So the first time I figured um, what was exactly wrong with me is when I saw a reflection on a glass door as I was walking towards that entrance. And I stood and I remember these few seconds where I took a few more steps just to be doubly sure that's how I was walking. So I saw it. I recognized that this is like visually it was imprinted. Okay, this is the problem. This is what everyone's on about. Um, it was unfortunately, we're 12 turning 13, and those are years that are so crucial and so critical, where your ideas are being formed about yourself. You either love yourself or you don't like yourself too much. Unfortunately, it was extreme regression that happened emotionally. Um, I still show up and participate in life in general, not that I hit any depression. I don't think back in the days like we even knew the word depression growing up. Like, those were adult things. Like it didn't happen to kids back in the days, at least not 20, 25 years ago. Uh, so I did really go back, like go into a shell. When you're kind of dealing with, oh, you're not as good looking as, the girls around, and teenagers can be very brutal. You could look your ugliest ever during those years. And trust me, I explored the length and breadth of being ugly that way. And I just didn't like what I was seeing in the mirror. Obviously, like I loved food. I still love food, but I was like all the food I was consuming was showing in nice big ways. I couldn't walk. Obviously, boys were not even up for discussion. Like, come on, like you got to be crazy to think about having boyfriends at that age, looking like that. I mean, um, yeah. So a lot of those things happened, and I went into a shell. I became best friends with books, so I'd read a lot. Uh, but what was happening up here, all that nonsense, all the toxic thoughts that were happening up here, just nobody to really speak about any of that too. So even with my parents, like I guess a lot of times it happens, parents, they see their kids doing well at school, you have a hobby like reading or writing, you have a handful of friends, you seem to be normal. They wouldn't really know how to dig deeper or ask you right questions to ensure that you're okay. So with all the complexes that can arise during those extremely tricky years, being disabled is a different ballgame. Like in your head, you're like, this is like some kind of a cage. This is ridiculous. This is the worst thing that can happen. You've got the worst end of the deal, you know. So it was not great. Like so, I grew up with having to overcompensate in some areas, or you'd have multiple defense mechanisms. I used to be extremely hot-headed and angry. I had no control of my temper. Just kind of like just not doing normal things didn't really help. Not, and of course, being differently able, you're not like first choice when people are going hiking, for example, or camping, or they have a day in the park where they're running around and swimming and just getting all that adrenaline rush. You're not the first choice in groups like that, and slowly you start saying no to it, because like in my case, mom was very, like, she was paranoid about sending me alone anywhere. I'm guessing she's concerned physical safety. God forbid anything else happens if she's not, watching. So it's not helpful. It's not helpful when you do things like that. So it
That's
was,
true.
yeah. So it was very up and down.
Very up and down. Yeah, I can just well imagine, because I feel regular adolescence years are tough for just anybody. And for you, I think the troubles were just multifold.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would have definitely been a very difficult time. So, tell us, what I associate you with is dance. How did dance enter your life?
At a very early age. So one of the first doctor who was treating me for my condition, and my physiotherapy had started. He was the one who told mom to ensure that I got all kinds of physical exercise included in my day-to-day activities. So she was a bit not sure about swimming, because she kind of saw me struggle in a pool once, and she freaked out. And that's kind of stuck with me. So I'm scared of swimming even till date, although it's great for people with CP and a lot of other conditions. Um, but dance was something that was very strongly recommended. And he said, it's great so that we can arrest muscle wastage. At least there won't be, we won't get into the more severe um, case, or we can avoid all those complications if we can try and ensure that she's as fit as possible, engaged in physical activities. And that's honestly, like, dance was prescribed by the doctor. That's what happened in my case. And I guess in my case, I was also doubly lucky, because mom, heard about Guru S. Natarajan, who happened to be in Dubai back then. And he is a living legend, absolute living legend. Back in the days, Sir gave me a classroom experience, a dance education that truly is an unparalleled till date. Today, I'll have to spend lots of dirhams per hour to get the kind of attention or even physical work that Sir was able to think of for my body back then. And that was one of the other reasons why I grew up thinking I can dance, because he never made me feel in class that I couldn't dance. So, those very crucial years when you're like between 6 to 10, 6 to 11, you're growing up, there's no idea of, oh, I can't do it. The only thing is, oh, there's something that's not sitting in my body. Sir wants me to practice more. I have to spend more time practicing and working hard. That's all there was to it. So I had to show up earlier than my batchmates, do my warm up, then warm up with them, do my class, have a cool down, and I'd have a set of exercises to do at home as well. And for me, all of this was just normal. None of this was because I was disabled. And I think that's his brilliance as a guru. And I guess that's the difference between a guru and a teacher or an instructor.
Very well said. Very well said.
That
So I
was a blessing.
so amazing that dance started for you as physiotherapy, and then became your passion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you won't believe it, Shilpa, I actually ran away from dance class to join martial arts. I took fees that mom gave me to give a dance class, and I went and paid up to join karate classes because mom was so serious about getting me to walk, right? That for me, like I had homework, I had to revise my lessons every day at home, and I had to do my dance practice as well. There was just no going away from this. And I was like, why? And plus I had to go for physiotherapy sessions. I was like, this is just crazy. Like nobody does this. So I want to do something where mom had no clue what I had to do. So martial arts, and again, like I said, martial arts has been something that I've been so interested in since I was a kid. Till date, I have such love for martial arts. And even then, I did not think that, a girl with partial cerebral palsy who's kind of wobbly on her feet cannot be in a karate class where kids are like kicking and flying in the air. It was just like, no, let me go find out. But I do, had I known that I was getting life lessons under Natarajan sir, I wouldn't have. And if there's anything I can do to go back to those days, I would gladly, because he truly embedded such appreciation for true dance. And like not the performance element of it, but what truly dance can be emotionally, spiritually, the therapeutic element of it, and to have a deep sense of appreciation for the discipline called dance. Um, I'm grateful to him for that, because you don't know these things, when you're too young. But when you grow up, something has been sowed in you, something has been laid as the foundation. And that's great. And which is incredibly helpful in the kind of work I'm doing today. And thanks to that, you read about it in the papers, and you connected with me. And, many people like you, very I'm blessed people who have kind of seen or heard or read about it, and they make connections because they connect with the core of that pure dance.
Absolutely. I mean, when I read about you, there was a phone number written, and I just dialed it. And normally I don't do that. But it was just like, wow, I have to speak to this lady. So that brings us to my next question, your dance initiative.
Right.
So you think I can't dance.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing. How did you come up with this idea?
I think because I was just fed up of everyone's idea of what I can and cannot do for a long time. And I mean, I've been dancing since I was 6. I'm 35 now, on and off. Uh, Dance has been pretty much an active part of my life, or martial arts or something along those lines. It's always been part of my life. And in most cases, I find people trying to either give a very substandard uh, version of movement because they think I can't do it. If they're not giving me a very okay, try this, wait around at the back of the class, stick around closer to the wall. If that's not happening, it's a very, especially within the Indian classical ecosystem, it's like, why don't you do expressive pieces, abhinaya pieces, karlo. Okay, you do it, it's great. But when you start getting defined, and when you define yourself within, those squares that are drawn around you, that becomes an issue. And I was kind of experiencing this firsthand. I was seeing teachers who didn't know what to do, and people do not think twice before turning around and using your condition or something that you're struggling with as something to attack you with. They kind of easily see you as, are you not interested? Somebody who's practicing for 5 hours, practicing something for 5 hours might be able to deliver it way better than somebody like me or anybody with a condition. They could practice it for 50 hours before they're able to do something half as good as that. Now, all bodies are not the same. I mean, this is not the, some ballet company where we all are practicing day in and day out for 8 hours and looking, like exact copies of each other. Like, you have to do the work. And that again is something I was kind of really getting frustrated with, the number of differently abled individuals who come up on stage in these ridiculously glittery clothes and dancing to Hum Honge Kamyab. And I'm like, what? And there's just, and it's like you don't want to subscribe to the idea of disciplined training. No idea of, you don't want to waste time. And I guess that's happening a lot, right? People want to come in for a class, they want to be in 2 classes, and by the 3rd class you want to be performance ready. I mean, unless you're supremely talented, like, I'm sorry, how is that possible? Like, would you do that? Would you be able to speak a new language in 3 days? Let's say you know a language, even within the language that you speak, if you wanted mastery over it, how much time do you have to spend? And you're talking about differently able bodies, right? Able bodies, if you have to spend that many hours trying to see what looks and fits aesthetically well without losing context. And we have so much history and literature to explore, Shilpa, within the Indian classical system, whatever Indian classical dance form you might be pursuing. And like, you just want to do some Bollywood piece and just go. And there's so much science in that training. You don't want to waste time. And again, the problem is because we are not getting equal opportunities and right exposure, even parents of a lot of differently able children will like, let's just get spotlight. We just want that 2 minutes of showtime and that's it. Dance can be so much more than performance. It can be truly therapeutic. You can even turn it into a career if you like, if you're willing to do the hard work. But nobody wants to do the hard work. You want to be on stage and you want to perform. And then everybody else gets to decide that you will wear these ridiculous clothes and have pink lipstick that doesn't suit your skin color and pink, cheeks that look like something totally godforsaken. I'm like, why is this happening? Somebody stop this from happening. I guess this combination of things really, Shilpa. Like, of course, like I resurrected my classical training in my mid-20s, closer to my mid-20s, when I saw my guru in Kathak, Guru Kali Chandra, perform on stage. I spent about 3 months contemplating whether I should or should not go in for Kathak classes, because Bharatanatyam, I'd lost touch with it. Difficult. Kathak's like another tough cookie, like imagine having no balance, no flexibility, and wanting to do chakkars where you have to like spin using your heel. And I'm like, oh, not sure. But one thing that's kept me on track, Shilpa, is after the very first trial class, I went up to do my namaskar to Paliji, and I was like, Paliji, so you think I can? And she's like, you can what? I was like, do you think I can dance? And she's so, she had this straight face and she was like, why not? And I didn't have an answer for that. And there I spent the next 5 years of my life, like, exploring Kathak in whichever ways I could. Unfortunately, there was another sabbatical dance-wise, but I have now resurrected my training in Bharatanatyam again. And I'm really glad that I did. And because of all of this, and because of this attitude that I've seen a lot of people have towards me, and a lot of rejections, trust me, a lot of rejections from teachers, instructors, where they're like, you want to be a part of a dance? You want to perform? So I guess that's when I was really thinking about it. It's like, so you think I can't dance? This, and of course, the talent show, so you think you can dance is big. And I thought just kind of flip the perspective. Yeah. That's where that came from.
I just love the name because it's like a question, it's like a challenge, and actually it highlights the rebel in you. And I really salute the rebel in you, because I think that what prompts you to do the breakthrough work that you do.
I think so.
That is amazing. So tell me, if you had to give a message to the fully able-bodied people of the world, what would that be?
Oh, for God's sake, just stop doing the whole mollycoddling, coochie-cooing business when you see a differently able individual. I've seen that so many times, and I guess because I am differently able and I'm connected to a lot of individuals who physically look, challenged as well, but with phenomenal minds. Like their brains are like operating at a different higher plane altogether. So something I like to give as an example when I'm speaking about this. Imagine I introduced you to a gentleman, a very weak looking gentleman sitting in a wheelchair and who's not able to communicate, but probably uses like one small motion or movement of maybe a muscle somewhere here or a muscle in the shoulder or something. And that's what's used to express or communicate with the outside world. And you look at the person and you go, oh, hi, how did you do? How are you today? You do all the kuchiko business and you exchange names and you find out that's Stephen Hawking. I'm sure you would feel like a massive idiot. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of people like that, Shilpa, and I feel that's not okay. And you equally also do not need to walk on eggshells when, like, you would have noticed even now, there are quite a few times where I've used the word disabled very comfortably. I don't mean it as a derogatory word. It's a disability. It's a disability. Feel free to ask the person in front of you, is it okay for me to use the word disabled? Or, do you prefer saying differently abled? You don't, okay, some people might like, I want to be identified as a person of determination and nothing else. That's fine. Like some people, but try and make an effort to find out how to interact with the person. Don't assume. And don't just go around and, some people have told me, oh, you shouldn't use the word disabled, you're not disabled. And I'm like, dude, I am. Like, I don't have a problem with it. What problem do you have with it? Like, as long as you're not using that word in a derogatory fashion and you understand what you're saying, it's okay. But, it's that. Just keep the lines of communication open, really.
Yeah, very right. In fact, that brings me to my next question. Uh, I have seen it very much. That's why I think you're the perfect person to ask. People have an image of disability. Like we say, don't judge a book by its cover. Many times people look at a differently abled person and decide if and how challenged is that person. Now, how incorrect is that?
How incorrect? That's, am I allowed? No, I'll not say it. That's like, can I look at your face and decide how intelligent you are? Okay, depression is not something that is very visible. These days, everybody knows everything that you need to know about depression. And they're like, oh, you can't say this about depression and you can't say that about depression. A person might not look depressed. God's sake, dude, a person might not look disabled, but they might have a very serious issue going on. And I have faced this multiple times where I'm like, okay, if I'm seated having this conversation, oh, but she doesn't look like she has cerebral palsy. I'm like, how many people with cerebral palsy do you know to have made this conclusion in the first place? And this is ridiculous. Like, you have an idea, like, if I'm disabled, it means I should be drooling from one side, or my face should be, like something I shouldn't be interested in. And there are people who like, oh, why are you talking about relationships, or why are you talking about attraction? If you're differently able, why would you feel those things? God damn it, this is still a human body. How can you not be open to that? Just because you're differently able does not mean like all your functions have shut off.
Yes.
This is a big issue. And people, I still remember there was someone from the religious circuit who had come to meet my mom at her place in India, and I happened to be at home, and they were trying to talk to me about getting into the religious path and being a little more religious than I am, rebellious over religious any day. But at the end of it, there was this very interesting question that I got from this clergy man, and it was, oh, Ancy, you seem to be happy. I was like, am I not supposed to be happy? Is it a problem that I am happy? Because it amused me, because they came to my mom's home expecting to find a 30-something-year-old Indian girl, disabled, extremely unhappy with her life. That's their mindset. I don't have to live by it. And none of us have to. Nobody who's differently abled or with a disorder. And why do I need to wear it on my sleeve? Just because I have partial cerebral palsy, you want me to sit like, not get my hair colored, not wear red lipstick, like sit like,
Yeah.
like what is that supposed to be? And equally, when people even share, like, I remember being out for a walk once, and a little one, a tiny little kid, looks at its mom and keeps tugging at the mother and goes, "Why is Auntie walking like that?" And I'm sure the mother figured that I've heard. So I smiled. Children are so curious, and it's darn cute how they are. Um, and the mom turned around and actually whacked the child in public. And I'm like, now, you don't, why did you have to do that? Of course, you must have thought, oh, it's embarrassing for you as an adult that, somebody who's differently abled, your child said something a bit too loud. But had she managed that to explain to the child that, I am different, I don't walk the way he does, or something could have happened, just taking the time, that would make that child, equip that child to deal with differently able people a lot better than receiving that response as well from its parent. So it's a bit of both, really. It's again, at the end of the day, I guess it's all our responsibility as well to not go and sit in the boxes that people chart
Oh,
for
yes.
us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, since I'm just so fascinated by your dance class, is there some interesting experiences that you've had with your attendees that you could share with us?
Experience wise, why don't I maybe share a picture or two just to um, show you
That would
what
be
goes on?
fantastic. That would, because I feel action speaks so much more than words. So, please do.
Great. So here's a little something. That's an image that I uh, really, really like from one of the sessions. And let's see, maybe I'll show you one more image that truly shows
Wow.
people, yeah, like the combination of ages, abilities.
Amazing. Just love it. I just love it. I'm seeing the joy on their face, and I'm just trying to imagine how much happiness you give to these people. You're making them like live their dream, and how they must be looking forward to the next time that they can come, move, dance, and express themselves in the best of their ability. So
Like,
tell us something that they've shared with you.
um, it's been good, and it's been, some have been great, some have been learning experiences. So I've loved receiving feedback. Like there's one participant who he's a teenager, comes to the session in a wheelchair with his sister. At the end of the session, the sister gives me a big hug and says, he's been in a wheelchair for most part of his life, and we've never realized that we could do so many things with a wheelchair. And that was really touching, to receive that feedback. Um, of course, there are, some of these teenagers. I've not yet done one with just for kids. It's usually 14 years and older. Um, and I focus on that because I feel the older you get age wise, the more we um, restrict ourselves from moving freely. That happened to me a lot, and I still struggle with it. The more you start thinking, the more you become aware, the more you're able to draw from what's going on outside of you. You just really shut off to, the immense possibilities that are possible, um, just within yourself. So the hugs, really, some of them, they come, and it's not really easy to tell whether they're fully enjoying the session, but at the end of the session, it's like the biggest hug that one can ask for, and that's great. um, but I've also had experiences, where people come in again with the mindset, oh, I don't see anyone visibly disabled, but I have people who sitting there with injuries or with disorders that are not visible. And that's like, again, going back to, don't judge, at sessions like this. People who come in for one session, and already asking about, when do they get to perform. I'm like, make a commitment of at least a few sessions, let your bodies open up, get used to the idea of following a choreography. And we don't do just hardcore choreography, we're really exploring each person's unique movement, and we have the entire floor to do that, and we're trying to have fun while doing it, so that it doesn't look like, one of those Bollywood Zumba classes, or it's not meant to just dance it all out. We do that, it's a part of it, but it's very freestyle.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like you said, you rightly started off, like, just the fact that we're moving around into music, and the combined energy of the people there, like all your dopamines and all of that chemical wonderful reactions happening, and you are happy towards the end of the session.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So this one, there are many beautiful thoughts that I do gather from you, and I'm trying to summarize them. I think you're talking about creating awareness, acceptance, integration. You're a fierce advocate of democratizing dance for people of all abilities, because I truly feel that dance is universal. It's not a monopoly for the 100% fit. For me, dance is expression of movement. It's an expression of the body and soul. And it's so unfair to have any restrictions of who can and who cannot dance. I am completely in awe of the phenomenal work that you do. And I'm sure that the viewers who will be watching this chat will be too. So thank you so much for joining me in the chat today, Ancy, and for sharing your incredible journey.
And thank you, Shilpa, for everything that you're doing with Happiness Chat, and for being such a happiness magnet yourself.
Thank you. I love the phrase, dance your troubles away, and there is no better time than now. So until we meet again, be happy, be safe. Thank you.